Hello everybody, welcome back to another quick video. Today I want to talk about acid kicks and frequency splitting. Frequency splitting is a sound design technique often used to make kind of hardstyle, acid core, whatever, kind of aggressive, distorted kick drums. And without further ado, I would like to share this trick. Alright, so frequency splitting is used to apply effects to different parts of the spectrum differently. For example, here we have a 909 kick, which is a very common starting sound for these kind of aggressive kick drums. And we might want to have the transient or the high end of this kick be very aggressively distorted, while the mid-range or the low end, the tail, is a little bit less distorted. So what you can do is you can split it. For example, let's say we have, if we close this up, if we could apply a distortion just to the high end here, that would be amazing. So let's say we want a 1K and above very distorted, and then we want this a little bit less distorted, and then we want our sub bass to be nice and clean so that we have a heavy sub bass as well. Maybe that's what we want. There's a few ways to do it. There's dedicated plugins. For example, if we go into my effects, I have Melda distortion, all these multi-band distortion units, distortion, saturator, wave folder, wave shaper, all that kind of stuff is multi-band, and therefore I can apply different settings of the effect to different parts of the frequency spectrum. But there is also a way you can do that inside Ableton Live itself. Let's say you don't have one of those plugins, and the way you would do that is with the multi-band dynamics. So let's say we have the multi-band dynamics here. For me, it opens up as the OTT as default. That's how I've set it. If you don't know, you can save as default preset and it'll open up like that. So I'll have to reset it. So that's done by setting all the input gains to 0, all the output gains to 0 here. And then double clicking each of these bands to turn off the compression. So now we have an OTT that is not really doing anything. So it can be used as a frequency splitter. So let's do that. For example, let's solo this high band here. Now this effect is already being added. So the distortion is already being added, but without the distortion, the kick sounds like this in the high band, and with the mid range, and then the lower. So you can solo these, and then you have individual bands that you can use. So let's group this into an audio effect rack and duplicate this twice. And now just solo each band for each part here. And now we can add our distortion and whatever. I've already set up a preset that works for me. So a few settings that work for me. So I'll quickly run through that. We have a high end here, which sounds like this. Oh. Nice gritty high end. We have our mid range here, which also has a lot of grit in there, and then our sub is a little bit less aggressive and just coming through nicely. So as you can hear, there's different compressions. You can see different EQs. This one has multiple distortion in there, more EQs. We have this being a very aggressive distortion and also a lot of aggressive EQing. And then finally in the low end, there's a little bit less aggressive EQing, but the distortion is still there and it's still driving it very hard. So that's kind of how you make the kick. Obviously these particular settings just generate this tone, but this is something where you can experiment a lot with. Just keep in mind that this is the way you kind of set up the frequency splitting. And that's one of the more important parts of the sound, because if you take just a distortion plugin, let's say an overdrive, and you drive it that hard, then it won't sound as good as you combine the multiple bands and dial in the distortion for each one of them. So this is with just an overdrive. It still sounds nice, but I like my version a lot better. It's a lot nicer sub, it's a lot more aggressive, has a nice high end to it, a little bit of almost like a noise feeling. Obviously there's a lot of stuff you can do. Again, if you don't like the noise feeling, you can, for example, turn off the distortion here. and you will have a cleaner high end and more of like a mid-range there. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, and it's a very cool trick for this. Obviously, you can also apply this to other kind of sounds. I just wanted to show it off with this kind of kick because it's a very common example for that. But that's going to be it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, feel free to leave a like. And if you're new here, subscribe. And I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.